If your radio is catching this, you are not the only one awake at 3:11. This is Noah Whitaker, broadcasting from the second-floor office of an auto glass shop off I-90, just east of Albany, New York. The room is dark except for a small camping lantern and the little red light on the transmitter. Outside, the wind is steady, like someone dragging a chain down the street without stopping. Temperature at my last reading was -16, wind chill worse than that, and it's still dropping. The plows stopped an hour ago, or maybe longer, because the beacons that used to blink down the interstate are gone. If you need to tune me in tighter, I'm putting this out on 8:10 a.m., mirroring to 97.7 FM if the rig holds, and there's a low-power hop-up on shortwave at 5.955 megahertz for anyone with an old set. I am keeping the transmitter power low so I don't fry the last good inverter I've got. If the signal wobbles, that's the wind trying to take the roof or the batteries dipping when the space heater kicks on. If you can hear me, set your watch, 3:12, Saturday. Day 4 since the snow turned from bad to wrong. I keep running the first hours back in my head because it helps me keep time. It started with small things that didn't look like much unless you were the type to watch patterns. I drive nights for side cash, and on Monday at 2:40, I had a run down Western Avenue. The streetlights were humming louder than normal, and I saw a ring of frost on the bulbs like a halo. It wasn't the look of a normal cold snap. When I parked, I could hear a tone under everything, like the sound a TV used to make when it was on mute. The next morning, the weather alerts started looping. Same voice, same line, repeating every 20 minutes. But the timestamp never updated. I called our local station to ask if their clock was out, and the phone tree kept shunting me to a recorded message about routine maintenance. Then the traffic cams froze on the DOT website. Every frame showed the same second, marked 6:03, with a whiteout smear and a plow mid-turn. That was the first time my stomach dropped. By noon, the power flickered all over the west end of the city, and the grocer on Madison started letting people pay cash only. Someone glued a hand-lettered sign to the door. "Card machines down, not our fault." Before sundown, the frost creeping inside the bus shelters started to climb across the glass like it had a plan. I'm not a meteorologist. I'm a guy who once helped set up a pirate station in college and never lost the itch. But I've been talking to people who know more than me. On Tuesday night, there was a short burst on 162.55 megahertz, one of the weather radio channels, that didn't sound like the usual loop. A man spoke in a fast, careful voice and said the jet stream had fallen into a stall. His words, and that pressure lines were tightening like guitar strings. He said we should expect polar air transport without the usual brakes. Then a second voice cut in and told him to stand down, and the loop came back like nothing had happened. If you were scanning the band, you heard it. If you weren't, it disappeared like a bad dream. I heard another thing from a medical tech in Utica. Her name is Angela. She gave me permission to share this. She said emergency rooms were filling with people who didn't have frostbite yet, but had this odd numbness and chest tightness after being outside for 10 minutes, even layered up. She said it looked like altitude sickness, but on the ground. I asked if that made sense. She said no, but nothing about this week made sense. By midweek, the city sounded wrong. Snow eats sound. We all know that, but this was more than that. The honk of the distant yard trains got faint, like someone turned a dial. Helicopters that used to cut low on the way to the hospital stopped. The helipad beacon is dark. The news stations kept airing, "We'll be right back" slates between long stretches of dead air. At 1700 on Wednesday, the governor's office pushed a text alert. Voluntary shelter in place advised due to severe winter conditions. The same alert repeated every hour with the same wording and the same typo in advised. At 2 a.m. on Thursday, that gentle nudge became a curfew enforced by state police and what looked like guard trucks without markings. I don't blame the men in those trucks. They looked as cold and tired as the rest of us. But it meant that if your pipes burst at 3 a.m., you were on your own. It meant if your space heater went out, you were going to barter with a neighbor or sit in your car until the fuel needle touched E. And then you were going to make a decision you didn't want to make. I'm sharing what I know. The power isn't stable across the grid, but certain blocks have it in cycles, 30 minutes on, 2 hours off. If you can move, and you're near Lark Street or Lower Delaware Avenue, I've heard there are buildings with generator rooms and people letting strangers in for heat. Bring water, because the taps are hit or miss. There was a line at the Price Chopper on Central that wrapped around twice yesterday until someone from inside shouted that the loading bays were frozen shut. Police tape went up. Then someone cut it with a pocket knife. No one wants trouble. Everyone wants soup and a battery and a blanket that isn't damp. If you are going to move, layer up and cover your nose so your breath doesn't freeze your scarf into a brick. Tie a line from your door to your car if you have to go outside in a whiteout so you don't lose the path on the way back. I laughed when a caller told me they did that in Buffalo during that storm a couple years ago. I'm not laughing now. Your body will tell you you're okay, and then your fingers won't work, and you won't be able to turn the key. Have the key in your pocket before you open the door. I want to explain why I have the voice you're hearing and why I'm on these frequencies. When the station downtown went quiet on Wednesday night, I tried to call the old engineer, but he didn't pick up. The roof here at the shop is flat, and the guy who owns the place is a friend from school. We spent one long night dragging up a mast and a bent dipole that used to live on my porch when I ran a weekend show. We set the antenna in 3 buckets of frozen sand because rebar and concrete were a lost cause in this cold. We ran coax down through a broken vent and piggybacked off a 12-volt inverter. The AM transmitter is a kit I built because I never learned to let go of stupid hobbies. It turns out, stupid hobbies save lives when the city goes quiet. The shortwave whip is ugly, but it carries in the cold night air. If you can't tune me, tune someone, anyone. Even a distant station will prove you're not alone. I'm going to share a theory now that may be wrong. I don't like pushing rumors, but this isn't a rumor. It's a pattern that keeps showing up in the few lines that still carry voices. On Thursday afternoon, a ham operator out of Binghamton, call sign K2IWB, told me he had been hearing a wide hiss band at regular intervals, like the sound before a weather radio alert, but spread across several channels at once. 15 minutes later, a voice on 5.330 megahertz, one of those channels HF nerds like me check when we're bored, said the words stratospheric surge, and gave a series of numbers that sounded like barometric readings that were backwards. When the hiss came back, the voice cut off mid-syllable. I've heard the hiss myself since then, once an hour, never perfectly on the hour. If you hear it, write down the time on the wall. The pattern might be useful, or it might just be the world breaking. Either way, it's a handhold. I promised I would take calls while the battery holds. I have a line in from an old Android phone on a DC charger. It won't ring on my end. It just lights up. If you have bars, and that's a big if, call 518-555-0192. If I don't pick up, it's because I'm warming my hands over the camping stove, or because the phone decided to die for 5 minutes like it does when the wind swings. Leave a message, and I'll replay it on the air. No music. No cursing if you can help it. not because I care about rules, but because it makes the recordings harder to air later when someone needs to take this tape to a real transmitter and say, "This was the week." I've got a message from a guy named Dan in Schenectady that came in at 1:29. He said he runs a little hardware store near Union Street. He said the line out the door at noon looked calm from the outside, but what he saw inside scared him more than any fight he's seen. People were polite at first, passing a box of batteries down the line, telling jokes through scarves. Then someone at the front realized the register couldn't run the card reader, and that the owner was counting cash with gloved hands and had 320s left in the drawer. The laughter died in a second. Dan said a woman offered her wedding ring for a propane can. The owner wouldn't take it. He handed her the can and told her to go home and come back next summer with a jar of peaches when the world warmed up. People cried at that. Then someone outside shouted that the patrol was coming and everyone scattered like birds. Dan walked home with the lights off through a city he's lived in for 50 years and said he didn't recognize his own block. A second message came in from Julie in Troy, a nurse. She said the ER sent them home early because the main generator had to be saved for surgeries only, and there were no surgeries because there were no ambulances moving after midnight. She said she saw a quiet line of people wrapped in blankets in the waiting room who had nowhere else to go because the warming center was full and the church had locked its doors after a fight over a charging strip. She said one old man didn't want a bed. He wanted a phone charger so he could call his daughter in Connecticut. The outlet he tried was dead. He held the dark phone like it would wake up if he stared at it long enough. Julie got one charge into it from a portable pack she keeps in her bag for night shift. And when the man heard his daughter's voice for 3 minutes before the call dropped, he laughed like a kid. Then the call fell apart into static, and the old man fell asleep with the phone on his chest. Julie didn't say whether he woke up. We are hearing theories. Everyone is. One voice says this is a normal pattern, a once-in-a-century cold snap, and the grid would have held if the load balancers hadn't tripped. Another says it's worse, because a plant down by the river went offline at the wrong time, and the feeder stations couldn't pick up the slack because the intake gates froze. Someone else says the turbines at a wind farm up north locked up in the cold, and the ice load cracked 3 blades like glass. A man from the college, a math guy whose name I'm not sharing because he asked me not to, says the air is doing something we didn't plan for. He used the word stacking. He says the cold is stacking in layers, and the layers aren't mixing. So the street level just keeps sinking into a deeper, heavier cold, while the layer 2 floors up is a little less awful. It would explain why certain stairwells feel warmer than the lobby. It would explain why a candle in the bathroom seems to help more than a space heater in the living room. He said he'd try to come by with a USB stick full of charts, and then his line dropped. If you're that math guy and you hear this, I've got a laptop that still boots in a pocket of warmth by the south wall. Government voices are fewer now, and when they come, they read from the same page. The EAS header codes still burst in sometimes, those triple beeps that used to make you roll your eyes during tornado season. But now, they lead into a voice that says, "This is a shelter advisory for your area," and gives no address and no list of sites. Yesterday afternoon, a convoy moved down Washington Avenue toward the Capitol. People said they saw soldiers in white coats over their gear, faces covered, breaths fogging the same as ours. The city's website says to check your county page for updates. The county page says to check the state. The state says to check your local broadcaster, which is me, I guess. And I am telling you the same thing I told my neighbor's teenage kid when he banged on my door and asked if his mom should drive to her sister's in Poughkeepsie. Don't drive anywhere unless staying put will kill you. Keep the tailpipe clear if you're running your car for heat. Crack a window. Rotate the people sitting closest to the heater every 30 minutes so no one gets too sleepy. That warm, heavy sleep is a liar. It feels like peace and it steals your breath. I need to say something I didn't want to say on the air. Not because it's secret, but because it feels like a crack in the shell I've been trying to keep around my chest. I had a call from my brother in Cleveland on Monday night, just as the first wave rolled over us. We were on video for once, laughing about the way the snow looks different on camera, flatter, like static. He put his kid, my niece, up to the screen, and she waved with a mitten the size of a loaf of bread. They lost power while we were talking. The picture froze on her wave. The last frame was her eyes on mine like she could see me. I keep thinking I'll get a text when the towers clear. And then, I remember there's a good chance those towers have ice stacked on them like armor, and no one's climbing to knock it off in this wind. And I sit down, and I breathe slow, and I say the names of the people I love out loud, so my mouth doesn't forget how to form the sounds. If you are listening and you're scared, say their names. It helps. This is the part where I make space for hope, because the night is long and the hour is mean, and the human brain needs a little light even when there is none. I have heard the good sounds too. A neighbor sharing soup from a pressure cooker they ran on a car battery and an inverter. A crew of 3 from down the block clearing the roof of a triple-decker so it doesn't cave. A woman with a baby and a dog getting a ride on the tailgate of a truck with a winch to a church that still has heat because someone knew where the manual gas valve was when the automatic one locked. People are learning fast. People are being kind in small, sharp ways. Kindness now is food. It is batteries. It is a spare glove. It is a phone call you share with the stranger beside you, and then you give the phone back without pocketing it. I said I'd take a live call if one came through. The phone just lit up with a weak line from 315. I'm going to try to patch it. If the signal dies, stay with me. I'll log what I can and play it back from the recorder. This is Noah. You're on. Yeah, this is Mark in Rome. I'm on Black River Boulevard. I can barely hear you. You keep dipping under the hiss. I've got you, Mark. Speak slow. Tell me what you're seeing. Okay. The river's throwing fog, but it's like the fog is freezing and falling. We built a lane with pallets from the hardware lot, like a boardwalk. We're taking folks from the laundromat to the old armory because they put cots there. The armory generator's stuttering. Can anyone out there tell me if we should shut down the lights in one wing to keep heat? People keep opening the doors. I'm going to answer based on what I've heard from a guy who ran a shelter after a storm on the coast. If you have to choose between lights and heat, heat wins. Kill lights in rooms where people sleep and use headlamps or flashlights. Pick one entrance and drill it. Sorry, I mean train it. So people understand it's the only door to use, and set a person there whose whole job is closing it right after every entry. Do you have plastic sheeting? Blankets? We've got a stack of tarps and duct tape. The pallets helped a lot. We lost one guy to the cold between the laundromat and the door. He fell. He was breathing when we got him in. He's quiet now. Put a tarp over the inner doorway and hang blankets to make an airlock, even a bad one. Human bodies warm rooms. Don't let that bleed away. If you can, put the older folks in the center of the room and the younger ones near the edges. Rotate who goes to the door cruise every hour. Warm drinks on a loop. Tiny sips for anyone who's shivering too hard to talk. Big gulps can hit the stomach wrong. Okay, I can do that. Thanks, man. Hey, if you can tell my wife, if she hears this. I left the note under the coffee can. She's more likely to hear your voice on this tape than the note in the cold. Say her name now. Emma. It's okay. Don't drive. I'm at the armory. I'll meet you when the light comes back. We're with you, Mark. Stay on the line if you can. I'm switching to play a recorded call from 585 that came in around midnight from a woman named Celeste in Rochester. She works nights at a radio repair shop, imagine that, near Lyle Avenue. She said she saw radio vans with private logos moving west in a line at 2100 hours, all with dish rigs, all with their plates taped over. She said every van had a guy in the passenger seat holding a laptop and a parka hood pulled down so far you could barely see his eyes. She said they weren't news vans. They didn't have crews. They looked like they were hunting signals. I don't know what to make of that. Maybe it's relief crews trying to map what's left. Maybe it's someone trying to mark the last warm voices so they can send help. Or maybe they were just running from the same cold we are, and pointing dishes at the sky, because that's what they know how to do when their hands shake. If the rumor mill is going to run, I want it to run in service of something useful. So here are the things I think we can say, like they are carved in ice. The cold is not normal. The looped warnings prove some part of the system went to sleep with its eyes open. The grid is wounded but not dead. Human bodies are heaters that need fuel. Feed them. Your car is a furnace if you respect it. Your stove is a danger if you don't. Tape over drafts. Use rugs and towels at the base of doors. Put a tablecloth over a card table and stick a candle under it and sit with your legs there. The heat pools and your hands will start to feel again. If you are in a high-rise and the stairwells are warmer, sleep on the landing if you have to, and use chalk or tape to mark your spot so the patrol doesn't think you're a risk. If you have a whistle, carry it. The wind swallows your voice, but a sharp whistle cuts. I'm going to keep giving the time so you can write it down and prove to yourself that the hours are passing. It is 3:39. The wind shifted 5 minutes ago. You can hear it as a new rattle on the east window. I'm going to try to reboot the inverter on the FM side for a stronger push. The AM should hold even if I dip. If the line drops, count 60 and retune. If you have a battery radio with a hand crank, put it under your coat and crank with your free hand so your fingers don't freeze. If your radio is on the windowsill, pull it in. The cold can sink into the casing and crack it when you touch it. We are learning 1,000 small rules for a world where heat is a currency. I want to make space for one more note from a man calling himself G in Boston. He says the red line is shut, and they parked trains on the tracks to hold space. He says you can walk the tunnel between stations if you're careful and not alone, because the air down there is a few degrees warmer and the wind doesn't cut like a knife. I am not telling you to trespass. I am telling you the old paths might keep you alive when the new ones are buried. He said he saw a group of 4 press their backs to those trains and share a single blanket and pass around a thermos, and a transit cop looked the other way because he was hugging his own chest and crying from the sting in his fingers. The walls that used to be hard have some give in them this week. Use that. Give for good, not for harm. I can feel the crack in my voice when I say the next bit, so I'll say it clean and slow. You're doing fine. If you made it through the last hour, you can make it through this one. The worst thing the cold does is make your world shrink to the 2 inches in front of your face. Open it back up for a second. Think about the block you live on in summer when the kids are chalking the sidewalks. Think about the way your neighbor laughs when the grill flares up too high. None of that is gone. It's folded and tucked under this white sheet for a while. We just have to keep a thread in our fingers so we can pull it back when the ditch between now and later is crossed. I'm going to recharge the phone and see if I can snag a call from anyone north of Saratoga. I've been trying to reach a guy at a substation up there who has a map of feeds on his fridge, drawn in Sharpie. If he picks up, I'll have actual lines to point you toward instead of the rumors about which neighborhoods still hum for an hour before dawn. If this transmitter goes quiet for a minute, it's because I'm pulling a frozen connector and warming it with my hands. Don't leave the room. Don't do anything dumb like chasing a wind noise on the roof. Sit tight and listen for the next voice. In a few minutes, if I can hold it, I'll read off a list of places that had lights between 1 a.m. and 2 a.m. so you can plan your battery charges to match them. And if you hear nothing but the hiss for a stretch, count 30 and say your name out loud again so you don't forget it belongs to you. This is Noah Whitaker on 810 a.m., mirroring 97.7 FM and 5.955 megahertz shortwave as long as the little red light stays lit. Time check. 0343. The wind is steady. The cold is here. You are not alone. Say your names. Heat your hands. If you can, drink something warm. I'll be right. I'll be back after I kick this inverter awake. Stay with me. 0356 now. The inverter came back online after a soft kick, but the voltage is low. The heater stutters when I push the transmit power higher, so if the tone of my voice changes, that's not emotion. It's the circuit gasping for air. The east windows cracked again, little hairline lines through the frost. The wind whistles when it finds them, like breath through teeth. I stuffed a towel in the gap, but it's only slowing it down. My breath makes tiny clouds that drift up, then freeze against the inside of the glass. The snow outside looks wrong in the streetlight, like it's crawling instead of falling. I've been staring at the transmitter light and thinking about the word permanent. The forecast still says temporary inversion pattern, but the forecast is running off last week's model. The satellites that feed it haven't sent updates in 48 hours. People say once in a century cold, but I've seen maps that make me think we're living in the part of the chart that says undefined. If the air itself has stopped moving the way we expect, then time is slowing too. Everything's suspended. Every sound echoes too long. I got a call before the line went dead again. Curtis, a trucker outside Buffalo. He said he'd been parked on the thruway since Wednesday with 4 rigs nose to tail, trying to save diesel. They kept one engine idling at a time for heat, rotating every few hours. He said when he climbed out to check the last trailer, his eyelashes froze together. The truck beside him had frost up to the windows, inside and out. He said, "Noah, it's like the world's filling with glass." His CB battery died mid-sentence. I can still hear his voice. I've been thinking about the people who used to run the big weather radar domes. The one near Shodak went dark yesterday afternoon. When those domes go dark, it means the dish inside is stuck or power's gone. But here's what's strange. The automated broadcast from the National Weather Service kept playing even after the dome camera froze. So the feed's looping from somewhere that's not live. Maybe a backup server. Maybe someone set it to repeat before walking away. I keep imagining that man or woman sitting in a chair in a room full of humming racks, watching the temperature dip to 0, and deciding, better a loop than silence. I found a map on a printed handout in this building. Storm prep instructions from last year. It lists emergency warming shelters. Half the addresses lead to schools. Those schools have flat roofs. Flat roofs collect snow like graves. If you're near one and the roof hasn't been cleared, don't stay long. Move lower, Move to basements with concrete ceilings, but don't seal yourself in completely. You need air, even cold air. The oxygen in some closed-off rooms has been dropping enough to make people drowsy before hypothermia sets in. If you wake up dizzy or with a pounding head, that's not stress. Crack a window. There's a theory floating around the ham channels, one I can't prove but can't shake either. Someone on 40 meters said this forever winter didn't start in the clouds, but on the ground. He said a cooling tower accident near a nuclear plant on the Great Lakes vented vapor into the atmosphere that acted like a seed, freezing microdroplets in upper air faster than any natural process could. That seeded the storm system, which locked the jet stream. I don't know. It sounds too clean, too engineered, but I've seen patterns lately that look more deliberate than random. A square patch of cloud on satellite stills. Repeated temperature drops of exactly 2 degrees every 4 hours. Nature doesn't do perfect intervals. Another voice, Maya from Pittsfield, sent a message through the backup repeater near Lenox. She says her cousin works at an observatory and that the barometric sensors started reporting negative values. Negative. They had to recalibrate twice before realizing the air pressure outside wasn't behaving according to any model they had. She said it's like the sky is heavier than the ground now, pressing down. If that's true, it would explain the dizziness, the joint pain, the shallow breathing people are reporting. The world is suffocating without losing air. I'm not trying to scare you. I just want to be real. If you still have heat, keep it low and steady instead of on and off bursts. The walls stay warmer that way. Don't open the fridge too often. Every time you do, it dumps cold air into the room and your heater fights harder. If you've got candles, light a few in corners where the air pools. Warmth gathers at the edges. And if you've got pets, let them near you. Their body heat matters more than pride. There was a strange flicker on the AM band an hour ago. Sounded like Morse. I couldn't catch it all because of static, but I picked out H and Q and something like L5. Then it stopped. If anyone else heard that pattern, 3 short, 1 long, 1 short, log it. If it repeats, we might have another station trying to reach us. I wish I could tell you the government was on it, but even the emergency coordination channel that's supposed to link county dispatchers has gone silent except for a single automated burst every half hour. System test in progress. There's no human voice behind it anymore. When you hear that, remember, it's just a machine still running. The people who started it might be gone, or sleeping, or frozen where they sat. I know that sounds bleak, but I keep thinking, machines don't give up. Maybe that's our cue. It's 4:17 now. The snow outside's moving sideways, and the last passing car I heard was 40 minutes ago. I can still feel the vibration in the floorboards where it passed. I'm going to lower power for a bit and check the rooftop cables. Don't leave the dial. I'll read off more survivor messages when I get back. One from a group near Syracuse who claim they found a radio tower still transmitting a live signal, repeating coordinates none of us recognize. Stay awake. Rub your hands. Keep your face covered. You're listening to Noah Whitaker, 8:10 a.m., 97.7 FM, and 5.955 megahertz. The red light's still glowing. The world hasn't gone quiet yet. I'll be back in a few minutes. If I'm not, it's because the stairs froze again. But I'll crawl back if I have to. Keep the frequency warm. 4:41. Back on air. The stairs were a sheet of glass. I had to crawl halfway down with a crowbar and chip my way through. The sky isn't black anymore. It's this pale, oily gray, like lights trying to come through but can't commit. I saw something out there, though. I'm not sure what to make of it. There's a glow to the south, just above the tree line. It's not lightning. It's steady, faintly orange. Maybe a gas main fire. Maybe a power substation blowing one transformer at a time. It's strange to say it, but seeing color again after so many days of blue and white, it almost felt like hope. There's a man sitting in the parking lot below the shop. His truck's dead, hood up, doors wide. He waved when I tapped the glass. I tried to shout, but the wind swallowed it. I pointed toward the door, but he didn't move. Maybe he's guarding what's in the truck. Maybe he's too tired to care. I'll check on him at daylight, if daylight ever shows. I have a few new recordings from the call line. The first one came from the southern end of the Hudson Valley. Someone named Ellis. I'm playing it from the tape deck. Noah, if you're still broadcasting, we've been watching the sky change color every night at the same time. Starts off pale green, then fades to violet. The kids say it looks like the northern lights, but we're too far south for that. The dogs won't stop barking when it happens. My wife swears she hears a hum coming from the hills, like an engine idling, but far away. The river's steaming, even at -10. What's that mean? Alice, if you're still listening, the hum you're hearing might be thermal inversion layers vibrating. When warm air gets trapped between cold layers, it can carry sound farther. Or maybe it's the grid lines humming as the voltage surges and drops. But the color, green to violet, that's new. You're not the first to mention it. Someone in Massachusetts saw the same thing. The difference is, up there, they said it was followed by snow that glittered with static. One man said when he touched his door handle, it shocked him through his gloves. I've been thinking about what happens when the air itself starts to hold a charge. It would explain why radios short out faster now, why phones die even when charged. There's something in the atmosphere. Charged particles, maybe, making everything one giant conductor. The power lines outside are coated in ice an inch thick, but they still buzz. That shouldn't happen. Frozen lines shouldn't hum. I'm not a scientist, but one of the engineers who used to work at the Rensselaer Institute sent me a text before service died. He said the cold fronts are interacting with the magnetic field in ways they've never seen. His exact words were, "It's like the planet's north is wandering." He said the instruments that track magnetic north had shifted by almost 2 degrees in 24 hours. That's not weather. That's the compass itself sliding. And if the magnetic field's off, maybe that's why the aurora's bleeding this far south. It could also mean our navigation systems are junk. Planes couldn't fly even if the runways weren't frozen. That explains the silence overhead. It's not just the cold. It's that no one knows which way's true anymore. A man from Montreal left a message on the shortwave relay. He said, "The sun hasn't risen in 2 days." I thought he meant cloud cover, but then he said, "We checked the horizon. The light that should be there isn't. It's just gone." I don't know what to make of that. If you're north of the border and hearing this, confirm it. Send a burst on 5.953 megahertz with your local time and sky conditions. You start to feel strange when you think about the sun not showing up. Like it's a friend who stopped calling. I used to take that orange light on my window every morning for granted. But now the world's locked in this half-light, like time stalled at dawn and forgot to move. I can't shake the thought that maybe this isn't just winter. Maybe it's something deeper. Maybe we've drifted somewhere the sun can't reach. Got another message queued. This one's from a man named Aaron in New Hampshire. "Noah, we've started naming the days by temperature. Yesterday was -22. Today's -28. I've been trying to melt snow on a camping stove for water, but it tastes like metal. My sister says the snow's different now. Flakes don't melt on your tongue. They just sit there and sting. What's in it? Aaron, that metallic taste. That's what we've been calling black frost. It's snow fused with fine particulates, industrial soot, salt, maybe even something magnetic. When the atmosphere traps pollutants under cold air layers, they get mixed into the precipitation. I've seen flakes that look gray under light. Don't eat it. If you melt it, let it settle, then strain it through cloth before you drink. There's something in that snow that isn't natural. I had to stop writing notes earlier because the pen froze mid-line. The ink turned to sludge. Now I'm using a carpenter's pencil and a scrap of cardboard. Feels like living in the past and future at the same time, writing on junk while talking to the world through waves. There's another rumor going around, one I shouldn't repeat, but people deserve to know what's being said. Word is, a deep freeze like this wasn't an accident. Someone on an encrypted frequency said a defense project up north tested something called a stratospheric veil. The idea was to block radiation spikes by scattering metallic aerosols in the upper atmosphere. They said it worked too well. It reflected more heat than planned, plunging temperatures below survival levels. I don't know if that's true. Maybe it's just people trying to find someone to blame. But it fits the pattern. Government silent, the sky wrong, the air too dense to breathe. If you're listening near Albany still, power flickered just now. That means the substation on Morton Avenue is trying to restart. It might give you 30 minutes of grid current before tripping again. If your heater clicks on, don't celebrate too loud. It'll be gone soon. Use that surge to charge radios, phones, anything portable. Heat water if you can. Don't waste it on lights. I keep telling myself this will pass, but every night it feels more permanent. The walls creak like they're alive, and the air burns when I breathe too fast. My fingers ache so bad I've started wrapping them in cloth soaked in warm tea just to feel them again. The loneliness is worse than the cold. I think that's what kills people first. The quiet. Let's take one more message before the battery dips again. It's from Claire in Toronto. Noah, my husband, went out to find gas 2 nights ago. Said he'd be 10 minutes. The snow swallowed his footprints before I could even close the door. I found his scarf frozen into the porch railing. There's no one else left on the street. The radio towers here hum all night. It's the only sound. It's like they're breathing. Claire, if you're still out there, stay indoors. Block the doors. Light something small and steady. Don't chase the sound. The hum's not real in the way you think it is. It's metal contracting. Wires singing in the wind. That's what I tell myself anyway. But the way she said breathing, it stuck with me. Sometimes when I turn the transmitter off, I swear I still hear it. The time is 5:08. The wind's louder now, pushing against the walls like a slow heartbeat. I'm going to stay on until the batteries dip below 11 volts, then switch to backup. If anyone out there's hearing me, send a shortwave reply with your city name, even if it's one word. It'll remind us that the line isn't dead yet. This is Noah Whitaker, 8:10 a.m., 97.7 FM, and 5.955 megahertz shortwave. The red light's still glowing, and I'm still here. 05:31. The lantern's dimming again. The glow's weak, but it's enough to show my breath. Tiny clouds, hanging still in front of me. I keep staring at them longer than I should, just to prove I'm still alive. I propped the recorder against a can of coffee. The microphone hums every time the building shakes. The wind's stronger now, like something big is moving through it. There's a sound outside I can't name. Not the wind, not the ice shifting. It's slower, deeper, like the creak of something enormous bending in the distance. Maybe it's the river freezing in chunks. Maybe it's just my head trying to turn the cold into a story. I tried calling that man in Schenectady again, the hardware store owner. The line picked up, but there was nothing on the other end, just a faint rhythm like tapping metal. I listened for 30 seconds before hanging up. Sometimes silence feels heavier than sound. The storm hasn't stopped. It's changed. The snow isn't falling now. It's floating. The air's so thick it's like gravity's been turned down. Flakes just drift, spinning in place. It makes everything outside look slow motion, like the world's underwater. I've got a new transmission from the north, barely readable through static. I ran it through the filter twice. Here's what it said. This is Field Unit 3, reporting from Plattsburgh Air Base. We have visibility at 100 meters. Atmospheric density is increasing. Barometer readings unstable. Requesting confirmation. Anyone receiving this, respond with temperature and wind direction. Repeat. This is Field Unit 3. Then silence. It wasn't a ham call. It was military. The frequency was one of the old Civil Air Patrol bands. They said Field Unit 3. That means there are at least 2 others. Somewhere, someone's still keeping track. If you're north of Albany and you catch that signal, respond. If they hear enough replies, they'll know someone's alive down here. There's something else strange. The snow outside glows faintly blue now when I shine the flashlight on it. It didn't do that yesterday. The reflection's stronger, like the crystals have changed shape. Maybe it's the charge in the air. Maybe something chemicals mixed in. I scraped some into a jar earlier, but it clung to the glass like static cling. It didn't melt, just sat there, pulsing faintly. A man from Syracuse left a message on the emergency repeater before it went dark. We found birds frozen mid-flight. Wings open, bodies stiff like they stopped in time. They're falling out of the air like glass ornaments. No blood, just solid. I don't know how to explain that. Maybe it's the drop in pressure. Maybe it's the magnetic shift. They lose sense of direction, stall, freeze before hitting the ground. Or maybe this storm's turning nature inside out. Another caller, name withheld, from Ohio, said they saw the clouds pulsing. Every 8 seconds, the sky flashes white, like a heartbeat. Then dark again. They thought it was lightning until they realized it was coming from above the clouds, not inside them. That means whatever's lighting up the sky isn't weather. It's cosmic. Maybe auroras, maybe satellites failing, maybe something else entirely. I keep thinking about the word forever. It doesn't sound long anymore. It just sounds empty. The kind of word you whisper when you run out of other ones. I checked the emergency channel again. There's a loop running on the NOAA band, different from the others. It's garbled, like a damaged recording. The voice says, temperatures below survivability, shelter, below grade, stay clear of reflective surfaces. Then it repeats, reflective surfaces. That caught me. What's dangerous about reflections? Unless something in the atmosphere is interacting with light in ways that affect the human eye, like snow blindness but amplified. If that's the case, maybe the glow outside's not just pretty, it's poison. If you've got mirrors or windows, cover them. I've seen things flash in the glass lately that don't line up with what's outside. shapes moving slower than my own reflection. It's probably a trick of the lantern, but I keep turning it away just in case. The phone's charging again. There's a voicemail from someone in Vermont. Let me play it. This is Tyler, near Montpelier. We've set up camp in a library basement. We've got 10 people, 1 generator, and enough canned food for a week. The windows upstairs shattered from the cold, every single one. We heard something last night, like whispering from the vents. We thought it was wind, but it followed us room to room. Then the generator flickered, and the air started moving without sound, like it was breathing. I don't know if we're staying another night. I replayed that one 3 times. I don't know what to say to him. There's something in his voice, like he already knows the answer. Another message from a woman named Adeline in Scranton. We found a house that's still warm. No one inside, fireplace still going. Soup on the stove, frozen solid mid-bubble. Clock stopped at 6:13. My husband says the cold came faster than time could react. We're leaving before nightfall. The snow outside moves. Every story feels like a different version of the same ending. Time slowing, air thickening, heat vanishing like it's being eaten. I looked at my thermometer just now. -31. The glass tubes cracked and the red lines frozen halfway. I can't tell if that's the real number or just the end of measurement. If anyone's hearing this near Boston, send a signal burst at 5.957 megahertz. A ham operator there named G said he's rigging a repeater to bounce my frequency back inland. If it works, we'll have a chain, Albany to Boston, maybe farther. And if you're alone, if you haven't heard another voice in days, I want you to try something. Tap your radio 3 times against the table. Once for life, twice for warmth, 3 times for memory. I can't hear it, but somewhere between the frequencies, maybe the world will. The time's 5:54. I can't tell if it's morning or night anymore. The sky looks like bruised steel. I'm running low on fuel. But I'll stay here until the batteries drop to 0, because silence is worse. This is Noah Whitaker, 8:10 a.m., 97.7 FM, and 5.955 megahertz. The red light's fading, but it's still there. So am I. 6:17. I can barely feel my hands now. I wrapped them in a towel warmed over the camping stove, but the heat never lasts. The air bites faster than the fire can chase it away. The heater's out of fuel, so I've got 1 small propane bottle left for the stove. After that, it's whatever body heat I can keep inside my coat. The outside world's quieter tonight. No wind, no creaks, no movement. Just stillness. You'd think silence would mean peace, but this one feels wrong. Like the whole planet's holding its breath. I cracked the door earlier just to listen, and the snow didn't even make a sound when it fell. It just settled, slow, like ash. There's a new noise in the distance, though. A low drone, like an engine idling miles away. It's constant, steady, too smooth to be a generator. I thought it was in my head until the windows started to hum with it. I turned the lantern off to listen better. The snow outside rippled. You ever see snow move like water? Neither had I. The transmission bands are a mess now. Frequencies are bending, voices overlapping, messages running backward. I recorded a loop from 5.955 megahertz an hour ago. The voice sounds automated, but when I slowed it down, I swear I heard someone whisper between the lines. Here, I'll play it back once. This is a civil coordination message. Atmospheric pressure. Static. Seek lower ground. Static. Radiation spike detected in troposphere. Between those breaks, just faint enough to miss if you weren't listening, a whisper said, "We made the air too heavy." I don't know who said it. Maybe it's a glitch. Maybe it's guilt echoing through the machines. Another caller came through earlier, Isaac from Rochester. His voice was shaking. He said, "The snow's burning us." He and his wife were hauling water from a nearby creek when it started. The flakes that landed on their faces left red welts. He sent a photo through a slow scan channel. Grainy, gray, but you could see it. Tiny pockmarks on his cheeks, like acid burns. He said the snow hissed when it touched skin. That means something in it's reacting to body heat. Maybe chemical fallout. Maybe electrostatic discharge. Either way, don't go outside bare. Don't let the snow touch your skin. There's an update from a retired meteorologist in Portland, Maine. His name's Walter. He said he's been charting the cold fronts manually since all the online maps went dead. He's found a repeating pattern. Every 12 hours, the cold deepens by 3 degrees, like clockwork. It's too precise to be natural. He thinks there's a pulse of energy driving it, something external. He said he doesn't believe it's weather anymore. He said, it's engineering. Walter also said the magnetic field shifts we talked about earlier have intensified. The compasses are spinning slowly clockwise now, about 1 rotation per hour. That shouldn't happen. He said if it continues, navigation will be impossible and worse. If it's connected to atmospheric charge, the poles might be inverting. That means the sky itself could start pulling down instead of up. There's a voicemail that came in from someone named Rosie near Utica. She said her neighborhood lights flickered last night for the first time in days. But when they came on, they weren't white. They were red. All of them. Streetlights, house bulbs, car headlights. Everything glowed red like the power grid had bled. She said it lasted 3 minutes, then went dark again. She called it the Red Minute. If you've seen that too, note the time and direction. That might be the grid trying to restart, or something else riding the wires. The shop I'm in used to have a big wall calendar with pictures of lakes in summer. I tore off the pages until I hit December. It says, 2026 in bold print. I circled today's date in pencil, even though I'm not sure if it's really today. The clocks drift when the power flickers, and the sun's no help anymore. Time's turned into a rumor. I found a box of old postcards in the drawer under the counter. Tourist cards from the Catskills, Lake George, Niagara Falls. I read the messages on the back. People saying, "Wish you were here. The weather's perfect. See you soon." I held one up to the lantern until the ink bled, and it felt like they were writing to me from another world. A warmer one. A louder one. Got another message. This one shortwave from someone calling themselves Doc. To anyone still transmitting east of the Appalachians, listen up. We've confirmed a jet stream collapse over the Great Lakes region. The stratosphere has dipped by 4,000 feet. We're seeing full light scattering. That means daylight won't reach surface level again until the inversion breaks. If it breaks. If you can, start conserving oxygen. Cold air's thick, but it's holding less O2 now. People are getting hypoxic indoors without realizing it. Breathe slow. Candle flame test. If it dims, you need to vent a crack. That message cut off at the word crack. If Doc's right, then it's not just cold. It's thin. The air itself's losing what keeps us awake. That explains the headaches, the fatigue, the fainting reports. Maybe that's why my lungs burn every time I talk too long. I took his advice. Lit a candle near the window. The flame bent sideways for a moment, then flickered blue. It didn't go out, but it danced like it was struggling to stay lit. I cracked the window a bit. The outside air slid in, colder but cleaner. The candle steadied. Maybe Doc saved my life tonight. The radio's crackling again. There's a new sound on the lower end of the band, a tone repeating every 40 seconds. It's not Morse. It's musical. 3 rising notes. 1 drop, then silence. Over and over. I've logged it for 20 minutes. Each time it plays, the lights flicker in sync. I think someone's using the power grid as an antenna. If so, that means there's a signal big enough to travel through the wires. Maybe it's an SOS, or maybe it's something else using our systems to talk. I'm going to take a short break to warm my hands and check the battery levels. Before I do, I want to read something from a note I found taped to the wall here. It's faded, written in blue marker. If you're alive to read this, don't stop talking. Someone, somewhere, can hear you. Whoever wrote that, I'm keeping their promise. It's 6:41. The air's thinner, the cold sharper, the silence heavier. But if you're still out there, keep your radio on. Tap the table 3 times if you can hear me. That's our signal now. This is Noah Whitaker, 8:10 a.m., 97.7 FM, and 5.955 megahertz. The red light's still flickering, faint but alive. And so am I. 6:17. I can barely feel my hands now. I wrapped them in a towel warmed over the camping stove, but the heat never lasts. The air bites faster than the fire can chase it away. The heater's out of fuel, so I've got 1 small propane bottle left for the stove. After that, it's whatever body heat I can keep inside my coat. The outside world's quieter tonight. No wind, no creaks, no movement. Just stillness. You'd think silence would mean peace, but this one feels wrong. Like the whole planet's holding its breath. I cracked the door earlier just to listen, and the snow didn't even make a sound when it fell. It just settled, slow, like ash. There's a new noise in the distance, though. A low drone, like an engine idling miles away. It's constant, steady, too smooth to be a generator. I thought it was in my head until the windows started to hum with it. I turned the lantern off to listen better. The snow outside rippled. You ever see snow move like water? Neither had I. The transmission bands are a mess now. Frequencies are bending, voices overlapping, messages running backward. I recorded a loop from 5.955 megahertz an hour ago. The voice sounds automated, but when I slowed it down, I swear I heard someone whisper between the lines. Here, I'll play it back once. This is a civil coordination message. Atmospheric pressure, static. Seek lower ground, static. Radiation spike detected in troposphere. Between those breaks, just faint enough to miss if you weren't listening, a whisper said, "We made the air too heavy." I don't know who said it. Maybe it's a glitch. Maybe it's guilt echoing through the machines. Another caller came through earlier. Isaac from Rochester. His voice was shaking. He said, "The snow's burning us." He and his wife were hauling water from a nearby creek when it started. The flakes that landed on their faces left red welts. He sent a photo through a slow scan channel. Grainy, gray, but you could see it. Tiny pockmarks on his cheeks like acid burns. He said the snow hissed when it touched skin. That means something in its reacting to body heat. Maybe chemical fallout. Maybe electrostatic discharge. Either way, don't go outside bare. Don't let the snow touch your skin. There's an update from a retired meteorologist in Portland, Maine. His name's Walter. He said he's been charting the cold fronts manually since all the online maps went dead. He's found a repeating pattern. Every 12 hours, the cold deepens by 3 degrees, like clockwork. It's too precise to be natural. He thinks there's a pulse of energy driving it. Something external. He said he doesn't believe it's weather anymore. He said it's engineering. Walter also said the magnetic field shifts we talked about earlier have intensified. The compasses are spinning slowly clockwise now, about 1 rotation per hour. That shouldn't happen. He said, if it continues, navigation will be impossible, and worse, if it's connected to atmospheric charge, the poles might be inverting. That means the sky itself could start pulling down instead of up. There's a voicemail that came in from someone named Rosie near Utica. She said her neighborhood lights flickered last night for the first time in days. But when they came on, they weren't white. They were red. All of them. Streetlights, house bulbs, car headlights. Everything glowed red like the power grid had bled. She said it lasted 3 minutes, then went dark again. She called it the Red Minute. If you've seen that too, note the time and direction. That might be the grid trying to restart, or something else riding the wires. The shop I'm in used to have a big wall calendar with pictures of lakes in summer. I tore off the pages until I hit December. It says, 2026, in bold print. I circled today's date in pencil, even though I'm not sure if it's really today. The clocks drift when the power flickers, and the sun's no help anymore. Time's turned into a rumor. I found a box of old postcards in the drawer under the counter. Tourist cards from the Catskills, Lake George, Niagara Falls. I read the messages on the back. People saying, wish you were here, the weather's perfect, see you soon. I held one up to the lantern until the ink bled, and it felt like they were writing to me from another world. A warmer one. A louder one. Got another message. This one shortwave from someone calling themselves Doc. To anyone still transmitting east of the Appalachians, listen up. We've confirmed a jet stream collapse over the Great Lakes region. The stratosphere has dipped by 4,000 feet. We're seeing full light scattering. That means daylight won't reach surface level again until the inversion breaks. If it breaks. If you can, start conserving oxygen. Cold air's thick, but it's holding less O2 now. People are getting hypoxic indoors without realizing it. Breathe slow. Candle flame test. If it dims, you need to vent a crack. That message cut off at the word crack. If Doc's right, then it's not just cold, it's thin. The air itself's losing what keeps us awake. That explains the headaches, the fatigue, the fainting reports. Maybe that's why my lungs burn every time I talk too long. I took his advice, lit a candle near the window. The flame bent sideways for a moment, then flickered blue. It didn't go out, but it danced like it was struggling to stay lit. I cracked the window a bit. The outside air slid in, colder but cleaner. The candle steadied. Maybe Doc saved my life tonight. The radio's crackling again. There's a new sound on the lower end of the band, a tone repeating every 40 seconds. It's not Morse, it's musical. 3 rising notes, 1 drop, then silence, over and over. I've logged it for 20 minutes. Each time it plays, the lights flicker in sync. I think someone's using the power grid as an antenna. If so, that means there's a signal big enough to travel through the wires. Maybe it's an SOS. Or maybe it's something else using our systems to talk. I'm going to take a short break to warm my hands and check the battery levels. Before I do, I want to read something from a note I found taped to the wall here. It's faded, written in blue marker. If you're alive to read this, don't stop talking. Someone, somewhere, can hear you. Whoever wrote that, I'm keeping their promise. It's 6:41. The air's thinner, the cold sharper, the silence heavier. But if you're still out there, keep your radio on. Tap the table 3 times if you can hear me. That's our signal now. This is Noah Whitaker, 8:10 a.m., 97.7 FM, and 5.955 megahertz. The red light's still flickering, faint but alive, and so am I.